Wow. Good morning. My name's Linda Tweedy, and I have the announcements. Karen, Ken, and Reverend David's classes are ending a week later than scheduled. Please make a note. Look inside your bulletin for more information on events and classes. Join us for landscape cleanup on November the 9th between 9 and 12. And please consider dropping in on Thursdays from 9 to 12 to help with the storm debris removal. They could really use some strong help. There will be a silent auction benefiting our YOU next Sunday after the 11 o'clock service. They are making jack-o'-lanterns, displaying them, and they will be ready for purchase. If you're new to our community, consider joining Dr. Gary on November 11th following the 11 a.m. service to learn how to take your involvement further. Oh, that says 10th. Okay. November is the 11. 11:10. Okay. There we go. Island of Sanity with Reverend Jane on 11/9 at 10 a.m. Are you willing to grow beyond your yesterday self and be the change for a new paradigm of living to emerge? If so, join Jane on November the 9th. And now I will call Jane up to tell you about AVP. Oh.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Yeah, I want to say a couple things about the Alternatives to Violence Project, or AVP as it's called. AVP provides experiential workshops that work in the arenas of cooperation, communication, affirmation, conflict resolution, and much, much more but beyond that. And we are looking for peacemakers. Do we have any peacemakers around? Yes. One or two? Yes. So it's an 18-hour workshop, and we're now presenting these workshops inside of 2 correctional facilities and a high school. We keep on spreading more and more. So if you're interested at all in doing any sort of prison work or working with youth to help them to learn these skills and to spread some peace in the world, consider becoming a facilitator. And the way that you do that is that you take a basic workshop first, which is what we're offering November 9th, 8th through 10th, then a second level, and then there'll be a weekend training, which we happen to be going through this very weekend. And we have some trainees that will graduate this afternoon. But you don't have to become a facilitator to do this either. You can just do it for your own desire. So consider coming to the basic workshop. Now, we have some AVP facilitators in our community already. If you're an AVP facilitator or ready to graduate this afternoon as one, please stand up so we can see you. Yeah, there they are. Yeah. And we have some more. They're just not here right now. But if you're interested in learning more about AVP or coming to the workshop, there's a sign-up sheet on the information desk. And please feel free to just sign up to get more information if you want. But I'd like to invite you all to be at the basic workshop. Come on down. There's a nominal fee of $30, which just basically covers supplies. The church very kindly donates the room to us, but we pay for it to be cleaned and whatnot. Also, that money goes towards our work in the prisons, because we also train facilitators inside prisons, and they can't buy their own manuals, so we provide that. So it's all going to help create more peace in the world. I'd like to invite you to be a part of that if you're interested. Thanks.
Good morning, I'm Joan Breckling, and I'm here to do the monthly board update. I'm president of the board, and I hope that all of you have gotten this piece of paper, this lovely piece of paper called Unity Spiritual Center Ownership Survey. If you don't have one of these, would you please raise your hand, and the ushers will bring you one. If you're in the choir and have already done this, thank you. So has everybody got one, it looks like? Okay, and for those of you who are watching, this will be available online through our Constant Contact this week on Wednesday. There will be an online link to go to SurveyMonkey. But so what this is, the board just decided that we wanted to do kind of a point-in-time survey, just to get a feel for where we're at with various aspects of what contributes to ownership here at Unity, which is, of course, part of this whole mission-centered process that we are entering into, or in the midst of. So when you answer these questions, you'll see that some of them don't apply to you because, the second question refers to what kind of member you are and then what your involvement is. I wanted to just make a point that even though we, for this purpose, have differentiated between different kinds of members, everybody who is here, whether you're a member or not, is just a very valued member or valued part of this community. So we thank you for that. And then also to note that the first several questions ask you to check all the things that apply. And questions 5 and 6 they kind of require you to just pick one, which is the best response for a descriptor of where you're at. There are no right and wrong answers, no names, please. This is totally anonymous. This is just to give the board some information about where we as a whole group are in the process. So if we could just take about 3 minutes now to complete this, and at the end of the service, there's a basket out back, or you can just put it on the pedestal there. So if we could, and for those of you who've already done it, if we could just perhaps have about 2 or 3 minutes in silence so that those who are doing it can think. Thank you. One more thing I forgot to say is that this being the board update, it's not the board updating you, it's you updating the board. Thank you.
When I pray, I feel my Lord go deeper, my Lord go deeper into my God. When I pray, I feel my Lord go deeper, my Lord go deeper into my God. Right here, right now, right where I am.
Let's breathe in those words. When I pray, I feel my heart go deeper. I feel my love go deeper. my soul go deeper. So I invite you to join me in a time of prayer and meditation this morning as we settle into our seats. Notice any tension in the body and just release it. Feel the chair supporting you. As we set aside any cares or worries or thoughts that we have been carrying around with us all day, we just set them aside as we begin to focus on our breathing. Just follow the breath in and out. And as you do, let it anchor you even deeper in this now moment. Feel your body inhabit the moment. And as you continue to follow the breath, just imagine breathing right into your heart. If you want to put your hand on your heart, go ahead and do that. And now I invite you to bring into your mind's eye someone that you deeply love and appreciate. And allow that feeling of love and appreciation begin to warm your heart. Let it radiate beyond your heart as you feel your body come into alignment with this beautiful healing vibration of love. And now let it radiate and expand beyond your body. And imagine sending this love to someone that you deeply love. Feel your divine connection heart to heart. And as we fill this sacred sanctuary with this healing presence of divine love, we create a coherent, energetic field of compassion. And that compassion grows and radiates beyond the walls as it blesses our community and our planet. And as we continue breathing into the heart, feeling love and appreciation, letting it grow beyond us and sending it forth, we enter the silence together. God is our source. And that as we pray, we go deeper into that sacred source. We experience our divine connection with the deeper dimension within us. And we are grateful. And so it is. Amen.
When I pray, I feel my love go deeper, my love go deeper into my heart. When I pray, I feel my love go deeper, my love goes deeper into my heart. Right here, right now, right now.
Okay, so this is the final talk in the Fall Faith Commitment Series, What's in the Way is the Way. And my talk title is Life is for you, not life is happening to you. So let me ask you this question. How are you having your life right now? So the reason why I'm asking this is because typically have you ever gone to the grocery store and they ask you, how's your day going? Well, it goes the way you make it go. It goes the way you have it, right? And so it's important for us to acknowledge this, because when we don't know this, that we have our life as it is unto us, we tend to believe that, therefore, that when our life looks and feels against us, we think something's wrong with what's going on in our life, as opposed to thinking, oh, well, wait a minute, I'm having this against me. And that's the problem. Because life is for us, always. But if for some reason I am believing that my life is against me, then I'm forgetting that I have my life unto me as it is. That's what I do to me. Nobody else has the power to do that. I have the power to have my life as it is unto me. And the question, therefore, is, if that's true, if that's the truth, then how is it possible I am having my life from time to time as if it's not for me? And wouldn't it be important for us to explore that, unpack that? Because otherwise we are living dependent upon our life looking and feeling the way that we need it to happen for us in order for us to feel okay, or for us to feel of value. Our life has to be a certain way. But when we recognize that, no, wait a minute, we've been conditioned to look outside of ourselves for evidence of our worth, evidence of our well-being. We're conditioned to source our discomfort outside of ourselves, to source our well-being outside of ourselves. When the reality is that no, we have the power to have our life as unto us as we wish. And so if that's the truth, then how is it that we sometimes have our life as if it's happening to us or against us? I mentioned last time I spoke, that there are three sources. For me, I've discovered three sources of discomfort. And whenever we're feeling some kind of discomfort, and as I mentioned, when we source that discomfort outside of ourselves, we're living as if our life is happening to us. We're living as if we're a victim of our life experience, or at least that the life experience that we're having has the power to diminish me. And that's living as an effect, as opposed to seeing ourselves as cause or source, or what I'm going to describe later as life happens by me, not to me. And so if one way in which we experience discomfort is when we are being who we are not, let's say. Anybody ever be who you were not? So let me unpack this. So we're talking about our life happening to us, or life is against me, and we're trying to explain how that is possible, how that phenomenon is possible, when the deeper reality is that it's always for us. So let me ask you this question. Have you ever needed to be right before? Just raise your hand. Okay. And so what's going on? What's up with that, really? Think about it for a moment. When you are needing to be right, what's your internal state? I mean, isn't it true that when you're needing to be right, it's likely connected to your own sense of inadequacy? And that the circumstance is a threat, and so you compensate by showing up, needing to be right, or having to have things be a certain way. Ever done that one? It's called controlling. So whenever we're having to have things be a certain way or needing to be right, there's a part of us that has been activated. Our sense of inadequacy, our unworthiness, a sense that we're not enough. And so our behavior is really connected to a deeper belief that we have about ourselves, And we're living as if that's the truth of us with what is happening in our life. And that's how it's possible that our life looks and feels against us, because our life has to expose when we are being who we are not. So whenever your life looks and feels against you, just ask yourself, who do I need to be in order for me to take it in as if it's not for me? And 100% of the time, you'll see that you have to be not enough. You have to be inadequate. You have to be unworthy. Really, can you see that? That whenever we are having someone or something against us, or when we believe that life is happening to us, it is connecting to a part of us that's not the truth of us. It's a belief that we have about ourselves, a belief that we took on. And so therefore, if we're being with what we're having out of some belief that's not the truth of us, then we're being with what we're having out of who we are not, instead of who we truly are. And so if our way of being with what's happening in our life causes us to have our life against us, well, then the problem is how we're being with life, not the life situation. And once we are able to see that, no, wait a minute, when I'm being with my life out of my sense of inadequacy, I cause what I have to be insufficient, or I cause me to be not enough. And then when we're able to see that, no, wait a minute, my life is really happening by me. I am actually creating the life that looks and feels against me by virtue of my living in the disconnect, my living in an awareness that's separate and apart from the truth of who I am. And if I can come to the realization that, well, wait a minute, my life is really happening by me, albeit unconsciously for the most part, living in the disconnect for the most part, but nonetheless, it is happening because of how I am being with what's happening. Now I can begin to take the power back. Now I can begin to own what's happening in my life, because it's an effect of my creative process as opposed to something out there trying to limit me in some fashion. And so now we get to move into another dimension of expanding ourselves and recognizing, oh, wait a minute, the power is not there. The power is within how we are being with what's happening in our life. The second cause or source of our suffering is when we inadvertently confuse ourselves with what we're having. Have you ever suffered or felt uncomfortable when you didn't have what you wanted? Anybody? Or you had something that you didn't want? So can you now see that part of our suffering, part of our discomfort is linked to the having or not having of stuff? And what if we can't get what we want until we want what we have? Think about that for a moment. And the fact that we're either pushing away something or trying to gather something means that our well-being is mortgaged upon what's happening out there in our life, instead of us owning our capacity to decide how we're going to be with what's happening in the moment. And then recognize, no, I'm the creator of my own personal reality. And yes, when I create out of my habits of being and my unconscious programs, I'm going to get a life that looks pretty much like the craziness that's happening right now for most everybody in the world. But when I'm focused on understanding, no, I can create from a place within myself that's in the connected, felt state of oneness and interbeing and interdependency, a part of something bigger and greater, then I can surrender myself to that intelligence. But I have to begin to understand that wherever I have linked my sense of well-being with something that has to occur out there, I'm setting myself up for suffering. And so we just need to look at where in our life is our well-being connected to having something or getting rid of something. And then we will see that that dynamic causes us now to have our life, have our life for us or not, in the context of whether or not what we have is is serving our greater good in our own sense of self, in our own belief system. And then we have to arrive at a place where we begin to understand that even our own concept of what is good for us can reach a limit. And so when we begin to shift into this awareness, no, my life is happening by me. I'm the creator of my life. Then the choice is that I need to begin to create differently if I want to have a different experience out there. The situations out there don't need to change, but I need to change how I'm being and therefore what I'm doing. The kinds of habits that define me, I have to examine those so that I'm showing up energetically, being somebody that is not tied to the old self that lives in a conditioned belief that life is sometimes against him. And so as I begin to develop this awareness of my own influence with respect to how my life looks and feels, then I have to be more conscious. I have to pay more attention to how my thoughts and what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling is happening. And the moment that I find myself feeling uncomfortable, I have to tie that discomfort to a belief that is running me instead of a situation out there that's happening. I have to begin to tie my discomfort to the impulse that is seeking to have me reconcile. How is it possible that I'm having a limited experience when it is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom? We already possess this capacity to enter into the fullness of life, but we're limited by our own self-imposed beliefs. So as we move into the awareness, okay, if our transformational process is indeed a journey that systematically deconditions us to be sensitized to how our life looks and feels, and systematically awakens and activates aspects of ourself that are latent, that are here to show up, to give us the ability to be with whatever is happening without feeling diminished by it, so we can be unto it the one, to be unto it the Christ, to be unto it the way through which something happens through us that brings forth a greater good. And in order to get to that dimension of our capacity to be unto our life, making a difference, and therefore, helping the world out, we have to shift into this next stage of development. So if we can see that life happening to me and life happening by me is still a dimension of our own egoic self that is trying to manage what's happening out there, is there a way to abandon paying attention to that as being the sole source of what we need to take in order for us to find peace, but rather turn inward to a dimension of ourself that looks out at life and just sees pure potential as opposed to pure circumstance? And so as we move into that dimension of really owning a life that is always for us, and how can we live in that mindset that whenever we have an uncomfortable experience, it's just a reminder that there's a part of us that has slipped into the disconnect and there's nothing to fix. It's something to recover, something to reboot within ourselves. So the last discomfort that I'm wanting to speak to is the idea that we suffer when we resist life's flow. And so can you think of when you might have had some discomfort when you have resisted life's flow? And so in this context, we're looking at life happens through me. And so in no uncertain terms, a part of our spiritual purpose in this world is to be a conduit, an avenue, a channel through which Spirit uses us to make a difference in the world. And perhaps you've experienced that phenomenon, being used by life as an instrument to bring something forth. There's a lot of examples for me in my work, and the peace statements, unity peace statements. Unity stands for peace in the presence of conflict, for love in the presence of hatred, for forgiveness in the presence of injury. That statement that we repeat every Sunday, that hundreds of New Thought churches repeat, I wrote that, but it wasn't me, it came through me. And any of you who are artists or dancers or musicians, or you understand what it means to be creative. You understand what it means to open to the flow. If you do energy work, Reiki or healing, you understand what it means to be the way of God energetically instead of in the way of God. See? And so when we understand that the flow is there to help us step out of our worry, step out of our fretting, step out of our frustration. Our mind wants to solve all the problems that it comes up with. That's what keeps our mind and our ego with something to do. But when we recognize that our mind and our ego is ill-equipped to take on some aspects of our journey that requires a total surrendering to, so that we can be an inlet and an outlet of spirit, then we have to get ourselves out of the way. And so part of that process of getting ourselves out of the way is to remind ourselves that my life is for me. And it's for me whether I know it or not, whether I see it or not. I can just trust it. But what I have to do is I have to step out of the way in order for the flow to happen. Finally, there's this whole dimension of life happening as me. And so I'm wanting all of us to understand that we have each had this experience already. That's the story I'm making up about you, that you've all had an experience of life happening as you, where you have been the one unto your life. You have been no different than if Jesus Christ was in your place. You have done the very same thing. And so, for instance, how many of you have had the experience of loving someone unconditionally? Raise your hand. You know, probably somebody under the age of 2. And what did it feel like to be in that role of loving unconditionally? And so we can describe a feeling of absolute total connection, of love, of appreciation. And as we imagine a young child in the receiving of that experience of your love, it doesn't get any better than that moment. In other words, you can take yourself out and put Jesus Christ in it. It doesn't get any better. When we're the avenue, the conduit, when we be that love unto what is before us, it is no different than the presence of God incarnate. And when we recognize that that's something that we bring to this individual's life, is that dimension of spirit that is the very presence, that we get to do that from time to time, then it's important for us to look for those opportunities, because that very experience of being in that moment, the very essence of God incarnate, is something that we don't want to miss when we have the opportunity. Now, let's just set aside that little child for a moment, and now let's bring somebody else for the same purpose of loving unconditionally, okay? And I got one, here it is. This is a past wife experience, but it's different now. The same unconditional love is not happening. As a matter of fact, I have no desire to send this energy to this person. And why? Not only was she an attorney, and then we were only married for a few months, and I have all these stories and all this evidence. You see, the point is that we use our stories as evidence or as reasons why we can't be the one, or why we're not going to be this avenue of unconditional love unto whomever is in our awareness. And if we fail to step into that dimension of what we're all called to embody, to be the one unto our life, if that is something that we miss, then we miss the experience of what happens when we live in that awareness that we are Christ unto our own world. I mean, what better person than me, who's been hurt by this person, to be the one to give unconditional love. There is no better person than the very person that I am as the offended party. There is no better person than me to be the one to release her. And what if every one of us in this room has one person like that, where we have yet to release, we have yet to open our heart, where we have yet to be unto this person the one. And what if when we continue to know that that's what is pulling at our hearts, and what if when we don't follow that, that's what causes us to get sick? That's what causes us to be in lack. That's what causes us to struggle. And so as we awaken to who we are and who we've come here to be, and acknowledge that we live in a world that believes that there are forces out there that we have to guard and protect ourselves against. And while that is true in the level of situation and circumstance, in the level of principle and truth and spirit, we are called to inhabit a different dimensional awareness that to unfold not only the world but our own spiritual journey. And as we move towards exercising that part of ourself that is living in the programmed, conditioned world, and begin to rebuild the relationship consciously with the dimension of ourself that we can call spirit or presence or our higher self, all of a sudden we have resources that the world knows not of. And so I'll leave you with considering these questions and taking these thoughts and ideas a little deeper. So consider how you are predominantly having your life and the situations that tend to trigger the need to control or to be right. So once again, all of us have our life however we have it. There's nobody that makes us have our life a certain way. And so as you consider how you predominantly have your life in the situations that trigger or either need for control, bless you, or need to be right, as you look at those situations, you're going to come face to face with how you're not having your life for you. And in that awareness, you need to ask yourself the question, well, who do I need to be with this situation in order not to have it for me? And you'll get in touch, well, I'm being my inadequacy here, or I'm being my sense of not enough. Okay, well, we can work with those aspects of ourselves, not in the Sunday talk, but in the Q process and other ways. So, but the point is that we can see very clearly that our situations out there are really a mirror of our own interiors. In the areas of your life where circumstances appear to be against you, in what ways can you own how you are being with whatever is happening? So that's always a good question to bring forth, especially when you're trying to push something away. How can I own this? What part of me really needs to be in this experience that requires of me a willingness to kind of welcome this moment? Now, obviously, if it's an abusive situation, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the things that bug us psychologically, not the things that are physical dangers to us. And then finally, or next, identify 3 areas of your life where you are willing to go with the flow. I should read what I can see as opposed to try to find it back there. And then share an example of life happening as you. So in conclusion, for the sake of wrapping up the series, Mary O'Malley wants us to make friends with whatever's in our way. And why? Because what's in the way is the way. That's right. Okay, and so as we recognize that our own discomfort, Jane mentioned about wherever you're tight, everything in us is trying to get our attention to wake us up. And as we recognize that there's nothing against me, And yes, I've been conditioned to believe that, but when I really work with principle and really draw myself into a community that can support this process, you can make progress. You can get to a place where life is not a struggle. And I got to tell you, this is what's happening for us. And we just really want all of us to experience this together. So life is happening for us. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gary. And how many of you are in the Spirit group, What's in the Way is the Way, or in the series of talks? So several. Yeah, I just have to say that for me, this series and having the connection to the Sunday talk has been hugely beneficial. And I find myself reading each chapter and then going back and listening to your talks, and it feels more empowering, more powerful. And so if you haven't read the book, What's in the Way is the Way, we highly recommend it. It's been really a transformational journey for our Spirit group. And if you want to start it, I'd go back and watch the last, has it been 5? 7.
6. There was one that started the whole thing.
Okay, so the last 6 talks. So anyway, thank you both very much. This was amazing. Okay, let's see, where are we? Unity stands for peace in the presence of, I'm just kind of ad-libbing here because I'm not in my, here it is, okay. Unity stands for peace in the presence of conflict, for love in the presence of hatred, for forgiveness in the presence of injury. Unity honors the many names for God, the many paths to God, for we know that there is only one presence, one power, one life. So whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey of transformation, you are welcome here. We would especially like to welcome anyone who is here for the very first time. If this is your first time and you feel comfortable raising your hand, please do, and our ushers will bring you a packet. Is there anyone here for the first time? Couple? Great. Yay. Oh, I see a lot of hands. That's great. So on the outside of that packet, there is a form you can fill out to be added to our mailing list for our weekly e-news update and our quarterly newsletter. If you are interested, please fill out that packet and drop it in the love offering bag as it comes around instead of giving a donation today. And then also after the service, you can take the packet to our barista stand and get a free beverage of your choice. So we are really happy that you are here. And then if you have any questions, please talk to someone at our welcome desk, which is just outside just outside these doors, or members of our welcome team, and they can give you a name tag and talk to you more about our community. So we are very glad that you are here. Welcome. Okay, we would also like to welcome our online viewers. Thank you for joining us this morning. They're just behind you. Give a little wave. Okay, now it's time to welcome and greet each other with a handshake, a hug, a high five, whatever you're comfortable with. But before we do that, let us stand and sing our welcome song.
Gonna sing the other new song, and here we go. We are gathering in song, loving in the wonders, opening the doors of spirit wide. We are longing tonight, starting out together on a journey through the miracles inside. We are gathering in song, loving in the wonders, opening the doors of spirit wide. We are walking tonight, starting out together on a journey through the miracles inside.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jim Sledge. I have the privilege of being the treasurer on your board of trustees, and this is the time of our community giving. And as Joan said earlier, ownership is such an important part of mission-centric ministry, and so that ownership is something we really want to focus on. And as we recognize just how important this place called Unity Spiritual Center is to each and every one of us, then that naturally flows that we want to be owners of this. We want to be part of this. And in doing that, it's important to show up as volunteers or to make sure we see the financial aspects of our places considered and taken care of. So I ask you to think more and more about ownership as we progress along our journey towards the mission-centric ministry. And let's take that thought into our hearts as we say together our prosperity blessing. Together, I know that my giving blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I give and receive. I give thanks for the abundance that is mine to share. And so it is.
Our song this morning falls perfectly in line with Dr. Gary's talk, and this is literally about staying in touch with yourself. It's the listening and hearing and finding the spirit within. So I think you'll enjoy this.
Open my ears that I may hear, that I may hear.
Yeah, they're pretty good. That was awesome. I love choir days. It's very inspiring, so thank you. Let's take some time now to give thanks for these gifts and for those who have given them as we send them forth to bless our world. And so it is. Amen. Thank you. Okay, so our chaplains today are, I believe, okay, Mary Teresa, and is it Tim? Is that correct? Oh yeah, there's Tim. So Mary Teresa and Tim. And Mary Teresa, have you been holding the service in prayer? I always do. Okay, she always does. It's just her thing. Okay, so one of our chaplains holds the entire service in prayer, which is very powerful. And then we've got Tim and Mary Teresa up here after services. And so if you have anything that is heavy on your heart or something that you would like to share and celebrate, please come up to the front after service and talk to one of these two. They will hold it in prayer with you. They won't give you any advice. They will just be there to listen and pray with you. So please avail yourself to them as you are called. Thank you both for your service today. Also, if you have a prayer request, you can fill out the form in the pocket in front of you. So if you fill that out and put it in one of our prayer boxes, which there's one in the foyer, and then just one in the back here, then our prayer team will pray over it for 7 days, and then it will be sent on to Silent Unity, where it will be prayed over for 30 days. Also, if you or someone you know is in the hospital and has requested a visit, or they're in their home and they've requested a visit, then you can fill out the visitation request form, and someone will get back to you about scheduling that visit. So we're very grateful for our chaplains and for the prayer support that we have here at Unity. And so now we'd like to welcome our children, right? And then we'll do the thank you then. Yeah.
We are singing the false love is alright. We are singing false love is alright. We are singing false love is alright. We are singing false love is alright. We are singing, whoa, we are singing false love is alright. We are singing, whoa, we are singing false love. We are singing false love is alright. We are singing false love is alright. We are singing false love is alright. We are singing, whoa, we are singing false love is alright. We are singing, whoa, we are singing false joy is alright. We are singing false joy is alright. We are singing false joy is alright.
Yay! Hello, kids and youth, YOU. Danica would like to make an announcement real quick.
Announcements, yay! Hi. We have things at camp that we say when someone says announcements. So we are still in our little camp mentality. And we would just like to thank all of you guys for all your support you give for us to go to camp through our fundraisers. So thank you, everyone. And so speaking of fundraisers, we will be having a pumpkin auction next Sunday. We'll have some carved pumpkins for y'all that you can auction on. Do we have a time that we're doing that at? In between services or after service? After the 11 o'clock service. So yes, please join us for that and take some cool carved pumpkins home with you. Thank you.
And before we do our children's blessing, we want to take some time now to give an extra special thank you to all those that are in service to our youth ministry, to the YOU, to the kids, to all the YOU mentors, everyone and anyone who has ever, been of service to our youth. Please stand up. And I know everybody up here, obviously. Wow, look at that. These are all the people that have created and continue to create a sacred space for our youth, which is extremely important, especially if you're a parent or a youth yourself. It's extremely important to feel like you belong in a community. I know growing up, I never felt I belonged in the church that I went to. As a matter of fact, I felt kind of like an annoyance to everybody. So to be to be in a place where kids and youth are valued and recognized is huge. And so I personally want to thank each and every one of you that are in service. It almost brings tears to my eyes because you are so inspiring and so amazing, because I actually probably could not do it. So with that in mind, let's take our children's blessing into our hearts and do that for everyone who has ever served in our youth ministry. Be the love you are, sing the song you hear, share your joy of life with people far and near. And for ourselves, be the love we are, sing the song we hear, share our joy of life with people far and near. Thank you again. Okay, and so now, guys, you can go find the people you came with. Okay. Make sure everybody gets back safely. There's no running. I think they're almost there. There we go. Good job, everybody. All right. So now, if you could stand as you are able and join together for our closing prayer, followed by the peace song. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And that's the truth.
So if your life is for you, just consider how you're going to have your life. All right.